That's okay.
Hi, friends. I'm Nancy Fox.
And I'm Elaine Doran, and welcome to Deep Diving Divas.
On this episode, hey, we're already having fun, aren't we, Elaine?
Yes, we are.
We are. On this episode, we're going to dive in to talk about how to pick the perfect partner. And I'm going to share a little skinny find, and I can't wait to share it with you, Elaine. I know you're going to love it, and I think everybody else will too.
Oh, great.
Let's get started.
Hey there, friends, it's Nancy and Elaine. They're the Deep Diving Divas, it's quite a name. They're diving deep into the things that matter most, from friendships to family and so much more. Join them each week for a splash of fun.
Okay. Well, before we completely get started, I want to share something with you, Nancy. Last night, my husband and I went to go see Neil Sedaka. Does that name ring a bell?
I love Neil Sedaka back in the day.
Oh gosh, he sang all of his, he had so many songs that he did, but of course, some of the ones I remember, like Oh Carol and Laughter in the Rain, he did Happy Birthday Baby. Some of these things I didn't even know that he'd written them and performed. And it was such a great trip to take back with him. But, I noticed something in it, and it makes me kind of relate it to the show when we talk a lot about change and making changes in your life and reinventing yourself and changing careers or whatever. What was beautiful is that he did all of those songs at the beginning, and then he's created a whole new genre of kind of autobiographical music, and which he performed. It was beautiful. But what happens, I realize, with celebrities and singers, we want them to stay the same. We don't want them to change because we want to take ourselves back to a time when we listened to their music, when we got our first kiss or our first date or first dance or maybe making out. I don't know. But it was, you want that memory, and they want to change. They want to change and do the songs they haven't done. So it was just an interesting thing to see. So excited to introduce Dr. Alan Fox. He received his doctorate in psychology from UCLA. He's also a recognized international illustrious professional tennis player, where he was a Wimbledon quarterfinalist and a U.S. Davis Cup player. He coached tennis at Pepperdine University in Los Angeles, and in his spare time, he authored 4 books and has become a world-renowned sports psychologist. He speaks around the world and works with all kinds of athletes on mental toughness. So we think, Alan, it would be fascinating and extremely helpful to hear from you and what you're going to be speaking about today about picking the right partner. He'll share how it's similar to working with other athletes.
I could compare it. It's not exactly comparable, but somewhat, to picking a doubles partner in tennis. I had a player on my team that was one of the great doubles players that I'd ever seen. A genius in doubles. And he finished school at Pepperdine, went out on the tour. And you would think, what would you do if you were trying to make a living as a doubles player? What would you do as a first move? And it would be try to pick the best partner you can get so that you can win a lot of money and keep eating and so forth.
Yes.
But instead, this gentleman, for whatever reasons unknown, he picked like the number, well, I won't mention who he picked, but a guy that wasn't in his league. And so, of course, he had to carry his partner, and he struggled along, and all because he didn't do the most obvious thing before embarking, and that's pick a good partner. The same goes for a marriage. You see a lot of marriages that are broken up and that they struggle to get along. And a lot of that could have been solved in the first place, had the partners picked good partners, were careful with who they picked. But too often, picking a marriage partner, people sort of back into it. They dating and they're attracted and they're having fun and they've been together a while, so they just get married without really considering what are the crucial elements that they need for a long-term good partnership.
Okay, so what are those in your experience?
Well, first, you want somebody that's people that are emotionally stable, that rely on their logic system more than their emotional system, because there's inevitable cracks that appear, problems that come up. And to handle them, you need a couple of people that can sit down, talk it over, and have goodwill and work it out reasonably. But if the partners or one of them is emotional or both, they tend to not be able to do that. And so problems just fester.
Alan, it's kind of funny because, again, we're, comparing a little bit of tennis in your experience. But why don't you share with all of us what you did at Pepperdine as a coach with your players when it came to housing and travel and hotel rooms?
That's a great idea. That's really, they're going to have to be with each other a lot.
That's true. And they needed to get to team meetings and get to the matches, get to the cars on time so that the rest of the team didn't have to wait for them. And I like to be somewhat playful with my teams. And so I sit them all down and say, boys, I need to rank you by stability factor, that I call it. Okay. From low to high. And I want you to know that I can't have two low stability factor players together, because then they're not going to make it to the cars or the dinners. And so, and I don't want to waste the high stability factor players by putting them together. So I have to mix them. And I had one player that was the most stable. Richard Gallion, a wonderful young man. He was more stable at 18 or 19 than I was running the
That's
team.
true.
And I used to go to Richard if I was going to make team moves and bounce it off of Richard to see what the team reaction was going to be. So, Richard, yeah. Were you going to say something, Elaine?
I was going to say, how did the young men feel when you labeled them as, low stability? I mean, because it's kind of like, oh my God, am I ever going to be high stability? But how did they take it? Were they offended to get me?
They laughed. It was funny. I mean, the most important factor on a high quality tennis team is how well they play. And so that, their tennis skills superseded stability factor in importance to them. I mean,
right.
So I had Richard Gallion. He later became my assistant coach and went on to coach the women's team at USC for 20 years or so. A wonderful guy. And poor Richard, he had to room with the most unstable guys I had, because Richard would get them there somehow.
Okay, so how is that similar? All right, Alan, it's really in the unreal world. Wouldn't it be great? You get two stable people together. You got that guarantee. But what if, I'm not speaking for myself, but what if I was an incredibly unstable person? How should I choose?
Well, the less stable you are, of course, the more you need a stable partner to keep you out of trouble. So if you're unstable or stable, you want a stable partner.
Right. That's the ultimate.
Either way. The next question is, how do you know who might be a good pick for you? I mean, assuming you want as stable a person as you can find. The first place I would look, if you're dating and thinking of going further with it, ask them how they get along with their parents. That's the number one tell that I know of. There may be better, but that's what I would use first. Because if a person doesn't like either of their parents, doesn't get along with them at all, that's generally a person that you ought to run from, because usually they'll have emotional problems, either genetically or produced by an unhappy home. And so, and if the person you're thinking of likes both of their parents, gets along well with them, that's almost always a very good sign. They're probably a solid person, and they'll probably want to have a home like the home they had, a stable, happy home.
Right.
And so that's the number one tell.
It's interesting because I think sometimes people go into relationships, they might not like a particular behavior or trait, but they always say to themselves, I think I can change them. I think that, I can make them better. I'll be able to deal with it. But really, do you think these people can ever change that pattern? Or?
Unlikely. Actually, in anything involving human behavior and so forth, you're playing a numbers game, percentages. You don't know anything for sure, but it's percentages, and so you want to stack the deck in your favor. Another thing I would do beyond asking about the parents is, after you've been together a while and gone out with your friends and so forth, ask your friends what they think. Okay. If your friends don't like the person or think they're bad for you, also, I would run. And I've had that with some of my good friends. I and other friends advised them not to marry this particular person. They went ahead and did it, and it didn't last. Because all the stuff that your friends see, you're going to eventually see. You may be misled by physical attraction or their fun on dates and so forth. But when you're married, you got much deeper issues to deal with.
Alan, I kind of love that one. And Elaine, I'll tell you why. We've all been guilty of it. Look, for anybody that missed it, Alan and I have been married for 44 years, together coming up on 50. We did all the wrong things. But like Alan said, I was 19 when I met him. He was 35. And, craziness, even that on paper. And then just his background, my background. But the bottom line is it worked. So we're really not talking about us. But Alan said to me, kind of 5 years into our marriage, you know what? You made a bad bet, but you won. And I agree. But all of that said, it's an interesting one now here that we're more mature and we're listening to you. But for the younger people out there, friends do. You're right on that. We've seen it time and time again. Elaine, I don't know about you. Many, many of our friends, we try to warn them, you give advice, and you have to, buyer beware on it, because if they go ahead and marry that person, they know what you think, but more than not, they were right. So what has been your experience, Elaine?
I think that most of the time you're not going to listen. Even if your parents don't like them, you're going to do what you want to do, especially if you're young. And that's the mistake, because you don't really want to hear what they have to say, because I think bottom line, you know it. You know that this person might not be right for you. And when someone else says it, then it's really true. So, it hasn't been, I have not personally had that experience, but I know others that have been warned. And I've seen, from personally in my family, where they would actually be getting ready to get married, some of my relatives. And sometimes, a month before the marriage, one of them would decide they didn't want to get married. And it was like, you know what, go with that gut. And then all of a sudden they turned around and got married. And then they ended up getting divorced. So listen to those, look at those signs, those are red lights, stop.
I got a story for you. One of my very, very dearest friends was going to get married in New York. And there were like 3 of us that were very close to him. And we all flew into New York to spend time with him for the week before he got married. And we could see, the fiance was demanding and very tough, and she wanted to control everything. And he'd ask her for a favor and she would say no. And we watched it for a week. And about a day or so before the marriage, we had gotten together, the friends, and realized that this was going to be a disaster if he went forward. So we sequestered my friend, all of his friends, and his father drove up from Long Island. Drove up. We said, you can't go through with this. She's just horrible. And so, and none of that, but he talked to her sister, telling her about his qualms about the marriage. And her sister said, I don't blame you. Nobody gets along with her. And so Herb called her up and was going to call it off. And she said, I'll be right over. And so she drove over. And we were up in Herb's apartment up on the high floor. She rang up and we said, don't go down there, Herb. We didn't want him to go down there, but he went anyway. He's such a nice guy. It's always the nicest people that end up, with the rough ones. Anyway, he came back. Couldn't call it off, married her. It lasted a year.
Oh, yeah. It just, I was there to attest to it.
From the beginning. And he's such a nice guy that he just didn't have the strength to stick the knife in, to call it off.
So, Alan, you bring up a good point. There, with several people that in your life, maybe not your dearest friends, but, people and you've worked with a lot of your clients really on the mental toughness, but before long, the conversation morphs into their personal life. And on more than one occasion, you've talked about relationships or boyfriends or girlfriends or trying to work out a long-term relationship. And the running theme for a lot of people is you're seeing really, really nice people choosing people that are not very nice, kind of that old saying of opposites attract. So is there any way you can help us here? If that's you, if you've been married, let's say before, maybe you're on your second marriage, maybe your third marriage, and you want to stop the pattern, what do you do?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure what the answer is, but
what would your advice be? This is one of your clients. What would your advice be?
Well, just, to look at the character of the person more than the physical attractiveness or how charming they are on dates and so forth. You got to look deeper than that. That's what the friends tend to see. Is the quality of the person, and so how you see it, I don't know.
Alan, do you think that some people, I'm sorry, Nancy, I, heard a good term that people sabotage themselves. They might not be conscious of it, but they continue the same pattern of picking the wrong mate, having the wrong boss, picking the wrong friends that don't like them. They always say, why is this happening to me? How come you're so lucky and this doesn't happen to you? I bet, so do you see this pattern? People, it's just not with their mate, but it's everything in their life that they are always making bad choices, poor choices, and they don't even know they're doing it, but they do just.
Well, they make choices for particular reasons, and those reasons generally stay. And so they're liable to make the same mistake over and over. They look for certain things. Particularly if they had a bad family life, they may be choosing somebody. You often see like an abusive house. The one of the people leave and become abusers themselves,
Right.
even though they were abused and didn't like it.
The
So,
cycle, the cycle just continues of abuse or continue to.
But Alan, so I do have several friends that are in second or third marriages, maybe not lasting, I don't know. And so let's say somebody's out there at any age and they're trying to break the habit, then maybe your principles, hopefully they're listening today and that they pick up on these simple principles, because I think it's not that complicated, right? When you're actually aware of these habits.
yeah, I don't know that most people are aware of their
Right.
proclivities this way. I mean, you probably want to choose somebody that's the opposite of what you've been choosing. But the traits, you may not be aware of the traits that attract you. For instance, I was not aware of what attracted me so deeply to Nancy, that pretty little gal there. I mean, I know what attracted me to her when we were dating. I mean, she's very pretty and very nice.
And I was 19 years old and you were 35.
You were
Cheers.
Giving away all your secrets, Nancy. You weren't supposed to.
But we broke up. We broke up several times. Finally, once it was going to be for good. After we'd been dating for about 4.5 years, we broke up for about 6 months. And during that 6 months, I had a empty feeling in my chest that didn't go away. It wouldn't leave. So she had some sort of a hold on me that I wasn't aware of. I thought we were finished and we weren't. And so I came crawling back and proposed, and she put me on trial for a while and to make me suffer. And then we got married. And as soon as we got married, all the fears, uncertainties went away immediately. I mean, I felt very good about being married.
And picking the right partner.
I realized after a while that what got me with Nancy is she's just like my mother. Well, my mother was the most caring, unselfish, giving, good person I had ever met until I met Nancy. That was what got me. It was Nancy. She didn't look like my mother, I wasn't attracted to my mother, but I was comfortable with my mother. And so when I was with Nancy, I had that same comfort I had, at home. So
that's an interesting one, Alan. That's an interesting one, because I think for a lot of people, maybe their picker is what they're familiar with, what they're comfortable with. And so we have 2 sons that are married, and we know the best gift we gave them was seeing a very loving home, a loving relationship. And and Alan always made it really clear, if you like our life, marry somebody like your mom. And so, and vice versa. And so it wasn't by coincidence that they have really wonderful wives. And so our pattern of our family is, continuing. But if you're not that family, then what I say is go back to Alan's 3 best, simplest tips. Elaine, were you listening? Why don't you?
I know I was listening, because I'm going to tell you, I was taking good notes so that I can share it with my husband. But luckily we made the right choices, although a lot of people thought it was not going to be right. And that's another story sometime. But Alan, I just want to go over a few of the things you talked about that are so important. You talked about emotional stability, that you need to check that out. You need to vet that person like we do, even in business. And you also talked about, really, it's important to, see how they get along with their parents. And I think that's probably one of the most important things, because families have so many troubles today. We don't realize how it's impacted their children, even though parents think their children are, they're resistant to everything. when I taught school, the parents never worried when they got divorced. They said, oh, my kids are going to be fine. It's me that I'm worried about. And it's like, what? You don't know what this you're doing to your kids. So it is the parents. And the other one is, ask your friends. You might not want to ask them because you might not want to hear the answer, but those people will tell you what they've observed as the two of you, are together. They'll make those observations. So I hope that all of you out there will take those things with you and think about it. If you're out there dating, if you're thinking about going out again after being married or a widow or widower, whatever it is, stop, step back and take a look.
Thank you all. Thank you, Alan. Okay, everybody ready? I've got my skinny find. This is not an ad. We're not getting paid. But a long time ago, I discovered Perfect Bar. It comes in peanut butter. And my other favorite is dark chocolate peanut butter. And what's so fabulous about it, especially for people in our age group, women particularly, we don't eat enough protein. They have 15 grams of protein. The peanut butter one is 330 calories, and or 340, and the dark chocolate chip peanut butter is 330, something like that. But they're amazing. So, Elaine, I told you to buy one. Give us a test.
I can't wait. I'm starved.
You got it upside down, but go for it.
Oh, okay. I don't care. Upside.
While you're opening it.
Is it still upside down?
Yeah, that's good. If you like it, this one I found at Costco. They have the two popular flavors. You get you get 12 bars, 6 peanut butter and 6 dark chocolate. And you save at like half price when you buy.
Nancy.
The thing you need to know, it's a refrigerated item.
Yes. This is like a big chunk. It's heavy and big. Can I take a bite now?
Go for it.
I've been looking at this all day.
Well, Elaine, I'll talk for you. You're such a peanut butter fan. And I know that about you.
This is like a piece of peanut butter heaven. Oh my God.
Okay. And here's my hack. So Elaine, take the bar out so they can see how large it is.
Mm-hmm. Whoa.
Okay. My little skinny tip. If you eat a bar, you take too big a bite. I'm a foodie. I want to have a lot. So look what I did. I cut it. Can you see this? Into bite-sized pieces. This entire container is the bar. And so now I'm going to have 16 bites with my coffee or tea.
Yes. Oh, Nancy, this is the best. Thank you.
So you can buy it at any grocery store and Whole Foods and Costco if you get, but buy the single one first.
Okay.
They're in the refrigerator section at my local market. They're in the produce section, a little refrigerator cupboard. But even my grandkids eat them because they're good for all ages.
Let me see the size again that you cut them in.
I cut them in, so I cut it in half. And then I cut. And so I have 16 bites out of there.
Yes.
Okay, enjoy. Don't forget, everybody, join us on our Instagram or our Facebook at Deep Diving Divas, or email us, the deepdivingdivas@gmail.com. Want to know your comments if you try this Perfect Bar, peanut butter, or dark chocolate, and there's other flavors. Let us know what you think. Until next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
I can't wait. Bye.